Budget, please come to order. It is 9:02 a.m. on Tuesday, February 7, 2023. I would like to welcome our committee members. We have Committee Vice Chair Wire, Councilmember Kia Aina, Councilmember Say, and Councilmember Tulba, as well as Councilmember Tupola. There are no members participating remotely that I see right now, and so we will move forward to pursuant to Act 220, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021. This meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I will be identifying you by your last 3 digits of your phone number. And when your phone number is called, please press *6. I'll remind others when we do have a phone testifier when to press *6. To unmute yourself when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom to be called on. Some friendly reminders and tips. Please video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you're also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you're called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I'll proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. Act 220 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, in accordance with Act 220, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audio-visual contact with you, and we will not be able to reconvene, and we will need to wait until we reestablish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Members? Okay, with your indulgence, I just want to inform you all that we will be taking up Resolution 23-2 after Resolution 22-289. So item number 5 after item number 2. Okay, so that will, with that, written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and the phone number will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please silence or turn off all cell phone numbers. Okay, with that, members, we are on to Resolution 22-275. This confirms the appointment of Dr. Peter F. Young to the Board of Review number 3 for real property tax appeals for a term expiring on June 30, 2026. Members, we have a proposed posted CD1 submitted by myself for your information, and the amendments, including the correction of Mr. Young, is listed on the agenda. Okay. With that, we have the appointee with us today, and wow, you beat me to that. All right, can I please have you press the on-off button so that we can hear from you? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter Young, and I'm a nominee for this position.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions for the appointee for the Board of Review number 3 for real property tax appeals? Okay. Mr. Young, have you been able to meet with members of the committee and the council?
I have, and it was quite enjoyable. Yes, I met with 3 of the members, and we had robust conversations.
Okay. Should you move forward from committee, I anticipate that you will be meeting with more of our council members as well.
I hope so, yes.
Okay, thank you. We will now, members, we're still in discussion. Any questions Discussion? Okay, we will now proceed with remote testifiers. Thank you, Mr. Young. And are there any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, seeing none. Okay, there are no remote registered testifiers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Okay. Okay, seeing none. Members, we are still in discussion. Okay. The chair first recommends that the resolution 22-275 be amended to the posted CD1 as shared on the agenda. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? The resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that resolution 22-275 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Okay, any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered, and we'll see you next time, Mr. Young. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving forward, we have agenda item number 2, resolution 22-289. We have confirming Dominic H.K. Millis as the Director of Design and Construction of the City and County of Honolulu. With us today, we have the Acting Director, or Director Designate, I should say, of Director Millis. Oh, you can turn it back on.
Already on. Good morning, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Wire, and council members. My name is Haku Millis. I'm the Director Designate for Department of Design and Construction with the city. Once again, grateful for this opportunity and happy to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the DDC Director Designate? Okay, well, Director Millis, have you been meeting with all the members of the committee and the council?
Fortunately, I have been able to meet with each of you individually. I'm very grateful that you made time and we were able to discuss a lot about the budget, council ads, how to work more closely together, and how we, just operate the city and work towards collaborative effort.
Thank you. Director Millis, I know a lot of the time, if your meeting was like mine with the rest of the members, you focus on a lot. Thank you for focusing on our districts and a lot of the members' projects. But looking at you and your department and any of the challenges, what do you feel the biggest challenges are for you in DDC, and how will you be working, if you're not already, to address them?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so for DDC and a lot of city departments, one of our major issues is vacancies and being able to find, particularly engineers. Another concern that I have is the amount of available retirements that we're facing. Last year, we had, I believe, 8 retirements from supervisor positions, and 12 total retirements. Sometimes shorter notice than others, and other departments are still, suffering from only given 2 weeks to replace supervisor positions. So in our first cabinet meeting with administration, administration asked us what our focus would be for the year, and my focus will be succession planning. I recognize that we don't have anything in place to train up our younger staff, looking at opportunities for them to advance their careers, but also prepare them, whether they stay in DDC or not, for their next stage. Hopefully they decide to stay with us, and that's, focusing on that development is another reason that we can retain. Looking at vacancies, we've worked very closely with Department of Human Resources and BFS in order to try to streamline the hiring process. We've struggled because of the, just general requirements and procedures that we have to follow. But through a commitment from DHR particularly, we've been fortunate to hire, I believe, 15 in this fiscal year, and cutting down our hiring time from, well, I don't want to speculate how long it was before, but it's less than 3 months now in order to bring in our hires. So that's been our focus. I recognize that we can't just sit back and wait for engineers to apply at the city, so we're working together with other departments and meeting regularly in order to get creative on how to recruit. We have to go out and find these engineers. And it started with the career fair last week, or was that 2 weeks ago? There was a huge push and commitment by DHR in order to work towards how we can qualify engineers early, get interviews set up early, so that we're not losing these applicants to other opportunities where they can be offered a position a lot sooner. Thank you.
Thank you for that thorough response, Director Millis. Members, we're still in discussion. Are there any questions? We have Councilmember Kiaina.
Not questions. I just wanted to express my strong support for the nomination of Haku Millis as the director. During his tenure as the deputy director as well as the interim director, I have found him to be very responsive and his interactions with my office to be thorough. It is clear that he understands the intricacies within DDC, which undertakes a considerable number of major projects for nearly every department in the city and county of Honolulu. Haku brings a wealth of knowledge to a department that faces continuous challenges with regard to hiring, which he has outlined, and has a proactive strategy to address this issue. I believe he has made a meaningful difference to the communities, especially on the windward side, during his time as interim director, and I look forward to working with him in the future.
Thank you, Member Kiaina. Members, any other comments? Okay, thank you. Well, I first appreciate you because I feel like you're my partner at the IA Neighborhood Board for the last few years, so thank you very much for that. Okay, moving forward, we are proceeding on with remote testifiers. Okay, seeing that there are no remote registered testifiers, is there anyone else online that would like to, that wishes to testify? Okay, moving forward, seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Okay, nobody like? Okay. Let's see. Okay, seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Okay, we had made pretty good comments for that. Okay, with that, the chair recommends that Resolution 22-289 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion again? Any objections? Okay, any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered, and we'll see you again. Thank you very much, Director Millis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, council members.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, this one, yeah. Okay. All right, moving on. Members, as I stated in the beginning, we are moving Resolution 23-2 after 22-289. With that, we are taking up the new agenda item number 3, which is approving the reprogramming of $33 million to support the rental and utility relief program. Members, we have an amended Resolution 23-2 to a CD1 at our January 10, 2023 meeting and postponed further action. We have a proposed hand-carried CD1 that is available for you, I believe, at your desk. It is OCS 2023 number 0102/2/6/2023 2:37 p.m. that further amends the posted versions. The hand-carried CD1 makes the following amendments. And then A, in the 9th whereas clause, deletes the $33 million amount of ARPA SLR FRF funds and adds a phrase, through the state and local fiscal recovery fund. So it spells out the fund itself in order to clarify that the ARPA funds are from the SLFRF category. After the 9th whereas clause, it adds 4 new whereas clauses in order to comply with the requirements for reprogramming under Section 17 of Ordinance 22-14, the Executive Capital Budget Ordinance for fiscal year 2023, which includes, number 1, identifying $17 million from certain projects listed in Appendix A to Section 17 of Ordinance 22-14, and an additional $8 million from the remaining balance of the undesignated ARPA SLFRF monies appropriated in Ordinance 22-14 to support the rental and utility relief program. And number 2, it adds information regarding the City Department requesting the funds for the project. 2, the ARPA Recovery Plan subcategory, ARPA Fiscal Recovery Fund expend category, and the FRF expend subcategory. The project description, and 4, the expected time period for an expenditure of funds for the project, and 5, an explanation for why ARPA monies received during fiscal year 2021 are insufficient to cover the scope of the project proposed for reprogramming. C, in the be it resolved clause, approves the reprogramming of $25 million to support the rental and utility relief program, of which $20 million may be expended upon approval of the resolution, and $5 million be expended upon the council's receipt of a written housing and homeless program plan. D, adds a be it further resolved clause to read as follows. Be it further resolved that the council, upon approval of the reprogramming of said funds, authorizes the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services to implement the reprogramming, receipt, and expenditure of said funds in accordance with this resolution, and execute any incidental or related amendments, agreements, or documents in furtherance of any reprogramming actions. And we will be further, and also makes miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. We will also be making further amendments to the hand-carried CD1 as follows. First, in the 12th whereas clause, if you can see where the project lists are in Appendix A, we will be striking project number 6 and the related project description and replace it with project number 5 in the same amount, just different project, with the relevant project description that suits project number 5 instead of number 6. And number 2, to specify in the be it resolved clause that the funds are reprogrammed as described herein. Okay, with that, from the city administration, we have our Deputy Managing Director, as well as Executive Director, Office of Economic Revitalization, both DMD Jayaram, as well as Executive Director Asabe. Kinjong Hempel, which one go?
Good morning, Chair and
morning.
Vice Chair, as well as Council members. Krishna Jayar, I'm Deputy Managing Director. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Amy Asselby can speak as to the need for the RURP, if that is helpful to the Council. I'm here to answer any other questions with respect to the ARPA, if that's helpful to the Council. So we are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. One moment. Let's let Director get assistance for the project. But members, as Director Asabe is getting that up, does anyone have any questions for Deputy Managing Director in the meantime? Okay, we have Councilmember Calvin Say.
Yes, Deputy Director. So today, there's a major shift in policy from a $33 million appropriation down to 25. What is the impact of that deletion of the $8 million?
Thank you for that question, Chair. So we've actually prepared slides to show at the different dollar amounts what needs will be met. So we'll be prepared to share that as soon as we load that up.
And Madam Chair, may I continue? And the other question, simply put for me, is this. We already have a template in place because the two nonprofits are going to be expending the funds again. CNHA and Catholic Charities.
Correct.
And these provisions that they're requesting in the committee draft, will that tie your hands in getting these monies released? Or more paperwork for the departments? That's all I'm saying.
When I review the committee draft, it allocates which programs are going to get money pulled out of them for this
Correct.
purpose. I don't see any issues with that. We took a look at the projects that are getting pulled from. That is entirely the council's discretion.
Correct.
So we respect the council's decision making in this area.
No, that's tranche 2, right? Okay.
Councilmember Kiaina.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Managing Director. First, with regard to Ordinance 2214 or Bill 15, I don't know if you covered this already. what is the remaining balance of undesignated ARPA, SLR, FRF funds?
With respect to the second tranche, undesignated, my understanding is that this 8 million will capture the remaining unallocated portion.
But is that the total unallocated amount?
The 8 million will cover the remaining unallocated, so there won't be any unallocated after this.
Got it. Okay, and then, thank you, Chair, for including project number 39, which was my Appendix A add, but I just need to seek clarification. So first, with regard to the, and that would be on page 4 of Appendix A, $12.502 million. What has already been approved out of this total amount for specific projects? Are you aware?
This is for Project 39 specifically?
Yeah.
So for Project 39 specifically, it's still in progress, it's in review. Nothing has been approved out as an existing project.
Okay, so a couple of things then. With that, first, I would be pleased because I do know that the rental relief program has already have a lot of applications in the queue. And I applaud you for trying to meet their 33 million, even though they're not likely to get the total amount. So I'm willing to, I support the 3 million taking out of this, my project for the rental relief program. So that's the first thing. Second, I, of course, continue to support the strategy by the Office of Economic Revitalization with regard to agriculture. And so unless there has already been identified a pot of money for the remaining 8 million, I would like 8 million to potentially come out of this pot. Have you identified funds for phase 2 and phase 3 of the agricultural grants program?
Vice Chair, with respect to the second tranche of monies, we've always taken the position that it's entirely within the City Council's discretion how they want to move around that money. And so to answer your question, with respect to an 8 million for potential phase 2 of ag grants, we don't have that funds in the first tranche, so we'd be looking to the second tranche.
Okay, so I guess I want to, now that we're getting down to the nitty gritty of the remaining of the funds on this appendix, I just wanted to have a dialogue. I know that the executive director and I will be having a discussion because I understand there is a community-based project relating to Kalo. It is a new project. I am a little concerned because we are already underway with a strategy that I had endorsed. And I just want to make sure that we all are clear as we move forward with this, this amount, that we know what remaining funds are available and be very prudent moving forward. The Kalo project is very meritorious. However, it is a new project. I would not want it to hinder the strategy that we've already outlined with regard to phase 2 and phase 3 of the agricultural grants program. Anyway, thank you for your time and thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Of course, Vice Chair.
Okay, members, Deputy Managing Director, moving forward and looking at how the city administration can help the council, you said solely up to the council discretion. However, even as a chair, I'm limited to just one more person on my committee or any other member. So I'm not able to share this information of who I'm taking from and finding money from. I could have just made the sole discretion and be like, okay, if the member who put in money from last year isn't here, I'm gonna take the money. But I never do that. So I wanna be able to just make this request. Help us too at the council make requests to the council members. I was planning to say this later on actually, but help us make that request so that it could be a collaborative experience versus dropping the different projects on us too.
Chair, absolutely. Anything we can do to collaborate to make this process smoother or easier, I'm happy to do. For example, if Vice Chair has indicated that she wants to perhaps allocate 30 out of Project 39 monies towards ag grants, phases 2 and 3, then we would of course work together through OER and then come to council with a resolution to that purpose. And we do that with every other council member. So please let us know how we can be helpful in this respect.
Thank you very much. And I wish in retrospect, if I could go back a year ago, I wish I could have had just $8 million in this appendix A, so I could already put that in. How much, something thousand that I added, but now moving forward, I think being able to work with what is in this either appendix or whatever, however we decide to work on these SLFRF funds we hope that we can just not be surprised again with the certain projects that are chosen.
So, Chair, thank you. We should never be surprising you. That's not our intent. So, if you're amenable, I'd like to schedule some time. We can sit down with you and talk through what kind of process makes sense and will be helpful to you and to the other council members.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I know that we have an Executive Director Asbai to present as well. So thank you, Deputy Managing Director. Executive Director, I'm going to have Dina help press the buttons for you, if that's okay. Is that
Thanks.
okay?
It's just this one slide
it
that I
is?
wanted
Okay,
to
never mind.
share,
Never mind,
although
never
it's
mind.
not full screen. So
Well, actually, may I ask Dina to make it full screen, please?
thank you, Chair Cordero and Budget Committee members for having me today.
Okay, so hold on. I'm going to call a recess. I'm calling a recess subject to the call of the order of the chair, not order. One moment. Calling the Committee on Budget back to order. Okay, excuse me. Thank you, Executive Director. Please proceed.
Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit of data. We have been able to speak with all of the council members since last Budget Committee hearing, except Council Member Tupola, and we look forward to meeting with her next week. However, we've been looking at the data and know that there have been discussions about different amounts other than the mayor's request of $33 million to match the $38 million that's coming from Tranche 1. So we saw the CD1 and adjusted the numbers to show each of you what that would look like on a dollar basis in terms of the money impacting households, but also the number of households that could be supported through $25 million, okay? The total amount for $33 million is about 5,600 households. And I know there's been some other numbers that are floating around, but because there's a difference between the totality of the program in terms of the average amount per household received versus looking at the numbers for the recent amounts per household that is received. Because while we have been working really hard to get new households into the program and doing outreach, and thank you, council members, for your support, a lot of our recipients are previous recipients of the program. We call them recertifying households. So the maximum that they can receive is 3 months of funding prospective. And so that 3 months of funding cannot be more than $2,000 for rent, or a total of $2,500 if they include utilities. But on average, we're paying about $1,400 a month to cover rent, which again, based on some of your feedback, just want to remind you, it goes directly to the landlord or the property manager, right? It does not go to the household or the utility. So these are the dollars with 25 million and the current average amounts received per household, right? Not over the life of the program. Over the life of the program, it's an average of about $13,000 per household. Under the last tranche of funding, it's around $48,000 or $5,000 per household, right? So that said, you should have these on your desk if you want to take a look at what your district looks like. Both the CEOs of Catholic Charities and CNHA are here in terms of any questions that you might have about the functioning of the program and our rationale for coming forward to you at this time, requesting this amount to keep a program that's been effective in keeping families housed ongoing. So that is all I have to say about this data, but I did want to address Councilmember Kia Ina's question about the CALO project. The CALO project that some community members, as well as our food sustainability and agriculture program manager talked to you about, or your staff, I should say, is under the food access project funding that Chair Tommy Waters has put in tranche 2. It does not come under the agriculture funding. So I think some members of the community were confused which line item in Bill 15 that was under, but it is under Chair Waters' food access proposal and not the agriculture grants.
Thank you for that
Member Kia Ina.
clarification. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Member Kia Ina.
Thank you for that. That was not made clear to me. And so just so it doesn't impact phase 2 and phase 3, then I'm okay with that. Thank you so much. And so it would have been nice if the proponents of the project or your staff had alerted me to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the executive director? No? Okay. Okay. Well, I think it's because you met with all of us individually. Okay. I do have a question, if you happen to know. So I don't know if you have the Appendix A in front of you right now. The Appendix A number 5, the 5 million, has it been encumbered, or has there any fundings been encumbered yet? Oh, sorry, okay. Deputy Managing Director, for Appendix A number 5, under, I think Chair Waters included that, the 5 million. Has there any money been allocated or encumbered, I should say?
Chair, thank you for the question. So the 5 million in item number 5 is entirely available.
Thank you very much. Thank you, I appreciate that. Actually, Deputy Managing Director, I have another question. I know there are certain construction projects related to, I don't know if it's rockfall, and I guess since Member Dos Santos Tam isn't here, even I'll just bring up one of the projects that his predecessor put in regarding like Tantalus and I don't know what it was, Tantalus Street something, I'm not sure. Like for those funding, like let's say in a future request, not a future request, do we know if we're going to be including council's Appendix A adds into budget projects, or like actual budget projects in the CIP or operating budget in the for this current fiscal year?
So we're treating Bill 15, the Appendix A, as a standalone that we work off of. So it does not get reflected in what will be submitted in terms of the operating budget or the CIP.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Members, are there any other questions for Deputy Managing Director now that we have him at the mic? Okay, we have Vice Chair Wire.
Quickly, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Deputy Managing Director, for being here. Also, Director Asobe. So just following up on Chair or Budget Chair's question. So regarding number 5, so is there anyone in the administration right now looking at possible properties to acquire?
Thank you for the question, Vice Chair. So each of these projects have been assigned out to a department to work through and develop. So I don't have the particular assignment here, but I could get back to you on who was assigned to look at Project 5. Obviously, if council at this point takes the action of reusing this money for the RURP, then that effort will come to a halt,
Okay.
at least for these monies.
Okay. And then just to follow up, and you may not have it as well, but for number 1 on the appendix, I just didn't know if you had any updates on that. Whether that would be under a particular department, whether there's consideration of putting that out in a request for proposals.
So with respect to that one, I will get back to you in writing in terms of which department has been tasked with working on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I can't speak for any of the other members but myself, but something just to throw out in terms of looking at potential providers that could provide services. I'm not sure if at some point we could have, once we get the update, you're going to provide the conversation about whether potential acquisitions could be considered in that too, right? I know it might need to be reprogrammed, but if we're looking at provider availability or even maybe doing acquisitions for facilities that could provide similar substance abuse or mental health treatment.
So Vice Chair, you're suggesting that perhaps the monies could instead be used for an acquisition instead of as currently contemplated?
Well, I think a part of the process would be, and thanks for the clarification request, would be, okay, what's the status? Is it over with a particular department, say DCS, and do they intend to do an RFP to request services? And then if not, given the timing and maybe an assessment of provider availability, whether folks would even be applying for this funding, whether there's a need to maybe look at, okay, we do have some providers available, maybe we could use some of that for acquisitions too.
So thank you. And if I could share, so each of the departments is tasked to operationalize what's written here. And they're also asked to work with the council member that included the item in case they have questions or unsure about the wording that's here. So that is part of the process and that is happening. If you have, or any council member has a particular interest in a project that perhaps you didn't initiate, please let us know and we can certainly offer the same information to you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And, as Chair mentioned earlier, a lot of folks prior to me coming on board did a lot of work on this. So I know that it's a conversation we need to have, given Sunshine Law in committee. And I just bring it up because I think it's becoming increasingly clear that we do have a need for these particular services. It's been the case for years. Back when I was a prosecutor, we struggled with getting people into substance abuse, mental health, dual diagnosis bed spaces, because oftentimes they just weren't available. And I think what we're seeing in our community, and I think it's happening across the island, is that we have an increase in violent crimes, different types of activities that are often rooted in substance abuse or mental health issues that we could be, working towards resolving, right? That overlap with homelessness, not all the time, but that's just a conversation we've been having recently with area legislators, with the neighborhood boards, and with our provider, Achieve Zero. And so there's definitely a need in the community.
Understood, Vice Chair. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Tapola.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the welcome, Chair, in your committee today. I just want to follow up on Councilmember Wire's question. We both have a very fond desire to use number 1 for outreach workers, substance abuse, and specifically with the administration, I just want to reemphasize publicly kind of what we spoke with you and the mayor about yesterday is our desire to support community courts. I think the community courts right now, we have one prosecutor assigned to do the whole calendar for community court. He has some public defender support, but it has been a tool that has been really useful for us in our community in regards to having a little bit of enforcement and judicial oversight over some of the homeless individuals we're working with, providing them a guideline of what services that they should be possibly enrolling in to help improve their lives and get into a home and be reunited with their families. So I just wanted to iterate that we're grateful that the administration still is in conversation about that pocket, and we look forward to working with yourself and DCS to make sure that this goes out to providers that really could need, or to the prosecutor's office, so that we can expand a little bit of support for this component that actually helps our providers at the same time, because it clears the citations, warrants, helps homeless individuals, and it actually draws them to the court so that they want to discuss how they can better improve their life. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And since we're on the topic of project number 1, relating to, the efforts that the city is making from core to just the different pilots that we have out there, I think project number one is highly important for the success of the projects and efforts that the city is issuing forward, because of the reasons that that actually all the members have brought up over the past years and in this committee, from bed space to follow-up, follow-through, and just guideways and guidance, so that we can fill those gaps of services and those gaps of time that often occurs because there is a lack of bed space or a lack of capacity. So we really hope that we can look for number 1 to be a priority for all of us. And I just wanted to make that comment. Are there any other comments? Okay, Councilmember Say.
Yes, excuse me. Deputy Managing Director, I think one of the major shortcomings today that we're talking about the homeless situation and housing is, simply put, we don't have the professionals. When I say the professionals, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the medical professionals that we need. And I think your Director Crockett made that point. We're not doing the whole wraparound at this point in time. But in this particular case, it's not the city's responsibility, right, for the medical side of it. Or will it be, I consider it the state, the Department of Health, the adult mental health, the child and adolescent mental health, where there is a major shortage of these personnel. On top of that, I don't know if the DOE is going to fulfill their obligation to say that we're going to have psychologists or psychiatrists at each of the schools after what happened on the mainland in regards to the shooting of our students there. So I just bring this up because it's not just the city. We can't be, everything for all at this point in time. But the other point too, I think sometimes in the future when you have your testimony, state for the record, I would love to acquire more and more homes for these type of services. But you also should attach the O&M side to these particular homes that we acquire to provide these type of services. Not just you can acquire the home, then you come back for the appropriation. By then it's too late. And finally, for the 2 individuals who represent CNHA and Catholic Charities, I truly hope we do have these nonprofits that do provide these type of services. Because if they're not out there and they're being stretched so thin with the present situation that we have, we're not going to get any place with it. And that's why, in closing, Deputy MD, I hope we can fill that position in regards to the homeless coordinator to work well with Mr. Koshiba at the state level. And that's the way I see things at this point in time, It's the process. From A to Z, these are all the steps that we have to take. So in sincerity and honesty, that I just wish, okay, if we're going to acquire a home, tell me who will be the provider of service and how much is it going to cost this council? Or can we ask the state of Hawaii? That's all I'm saying. And even the judiciary is having a hard time, the court system. But that's all I'm sorry, Madam Chair, to bring this up, but when looking at what we're trying to do is fair. But if we don't have the nonprofits to provide these services, then we're stuck. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Say. Member Wire, Vice Chair Wire. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. And Councilmember Say in his wisdom just, brought some additional thoughts to my mind, because I do agree the city isn't in the field of health and human services. And I do think it provides a really good opportunity for partnerships where the city can leverage funds for acquisitions and do, partnerships with whether it's adult mental health or Department of Human Services, where they're the experts with, service provision, right? And so they could, say, have an MOU and contract out services and be responsible for those, compliance matters and ensuring the services get to clients. And the city's input to that could be the property to be used, right? And I say that because I think the city should always approach acquisitions cautiously, because of course they do add repair and maintenance costs to our budget. But I think when we're partnering with an expert like DHS or DOH, it gives a little more stability. And I think it gives the community a little bit more faith too, because they see us getting out of those silos and working together. So appreciate that, Councilmember Say, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I keep bringing up Deputy Managing Director, I keep bringing up those gaps because there are a few people that, actually Chief Zero is also in my district, which I know is in actually like 4 other members' districts as well, from Councilmember Tulba, Councilmember Okimoto, yours, mine, and also I have H3RC, I have Kalipalama and IHS as well. And the commonalities that we're finding is, the saturation of services and the follow-up and is key to gaining that trust and making sure that people are following up with appointments, because the gap is the timeliness of things, where an appointment can't be made until like 2 to 5 months down the road for a psychologist or for whoever they may need to see. There are people who, let's say they need to see a doctor for a certain medication. There are gaps in that timing as well. And so the saturation of services is key for capacity and all the things that we're alluding to here. So I just wanted to add to that. And I really appreciate what everyone has brought up, even what members have brought up in the last hearings as well.
Chair, if I may just briefly address the comments made by the council members. We entirely agree about the O&M issue. We can buy properties, but then there's a long tail cost that we need to reckon with, and that's something that we're aware with, and we try to balance properly in terms of whether the acquisition makes sense. And that's one of the key things we do look at is the ongoing operating maintenance costs. And to your comment, Vice Chair, about working with the state. Working with the state is critical. I mean, there's just no question about it. We all have to work hand in hand on this. And so that is one of our main focuses, is to make sure that we're in line with the state and working together well. So we hope to continue to do that with this new administration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, members, for your questions. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. We have one remote testifier. We have Zhi Zhang.
Aloha, Vice Chair and the Budget Committee. My name is Angela Melody Young, or Chitsu Shong, and I'm testifying in strong support of Resolution 23-002. RURP is a city and county of Honolulu program to help households that are experiencing economic hardship during the pandemic and are struggling to pay their rent, utility bills, or both. Payments are made directly to the landlord or utility. And an example would be someone experiencing hardship is a household member who had surgery during COVID but was unable to return to work. Or a student who's had difficulties getting a job during COVID. And although the program does not pay for mortgages, the Oahu Homeowners Assistance Fund can help with that. And the program has helped more than 15,000 families be safely housed during the pandemic with over $190 million in federal funds. Catholic Charities Hawaii and the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement are community partners and can provide additional funds for the families to assist with support. Also, the Mediation Center of the Pacific is also a partner and provides mediation sessions with renters and landlords to help find common ground. And the Mediation Center leads to agreements on leases and for payment plans. So anything we can do to support that program, it is imperative that we do. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thanks, Ms. Zhang. Okay, clerks, do we have any further remote testifiers? Oh, okay. All right. Seeing there are no more remote registered testifiers, is there anyone online else that wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. When I call your name, please proceed to the podium and begin by stating your name. Okay, with that, we have Richard Medeiros. Good morning. May I have you press your, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, council members. Good morning, Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Wire, and council members. My name is Richard Medeiros. I'm the Director of Emergency Financial Assistance at the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. I am here on behalf of CNHA as well as Catholic Charities of Hawaii to thank you guys for hearing this resolution, as well as to ask for these additional funds. Right now, between our two agencies, we have about $6.4 million left. We have about 1,500 active applications. The $6.4 million will only service about 400 to 450 applications, so additional funds is critical to at least clear out what we currently have. We would also like to do more in-person and outreach events for the target populations that we haven't yet served, which include a lot of the elderly in the community, those that don't speak English, and those that don't have technology access. So together, CNHA and CCH strongly supports the passage of this resolution, and we're available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the testifier? Okay, we have members say.
Yes, Mr. Medeiros, may I be the devil's advocate? Is it now that this is the year 2023 and we are post-COVID?
Yes, I believe we are.
Okay, my question would be, when do we start the process of weaning these particular renters off of the funding? Because we're not going to get that funding in the out years.
Thank you very much, Member Say, for that question. We have already began that process. Part of the funds from the federal funds was for housing stability services. Both Catholic Charities and Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement launched pilot programs yesterday on a very small scale to make sure that we're doing this right first, which includes eviction prevention services, moving fees, mediation services, legal aid services, and case management. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Member Kiana.
Just comment, thank you for your good work. I know it has been challenging from the outset, and I wish that we could have provided more clarity on the funding, but as we're winding down, we have to be prudent in the manner of how we balance the member ads as well as the compelling need, clearly, of your program. But thank you for all that you do.
Mahalo, Member Kiaina.
Members, any other questions for the testifier? Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. No question. Just wanted to echo that mahalo. Not just this program, but you and then also Catholic Charities have been on the front lines since COVID started. I mean, long before that with all the work you're doing in the community, but just really have stepped up, and so appreciate it. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Vice Chair. We really appreciate your support.
Mr. Medeiros, I was wondering, it's so good to hear about that pilot, and I hope that, of course, it expands. And how are CNHA and Catholic Charities looking to fund it after the out years of our federal funding?
Mahalo for that question. So the current funding for this is 10% of the federal funds are going into this housing stability services pot. We are creating more partnerships with different agencies and different organizations so that we can create a program that not only works, but is successful in helping people stay stably housed. I'm sure we all know in this room the difficulty with housing in the state of Hawaii, and particularly on the island of Oahu. So we are looking towards long-term solutions, not just short-term keep them in their homes.
Thank you. Is this going to be, are you also seeking state and city grants as well for the program?
I believe in the future we will be, yes.
Thank you very much for informing us. Okay, members, any other questions for the testifier? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, all right. There are no further in-person registered speakers. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Oh, okay, Deputy Managing Director.
I apologize, but I did want to give one update. I did get a text from one of my colleagues. So the projects that Vice Chair Wire was asking for about were DCS assigned projects. So I will get an update from them and provide it via the budget chair to all the council members. Thank you. Project 1 and Project 5. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, the chair recommends that Resolution 23-2, CD1, be amended to a CD1 as discussed. Any discussion? Any objections, reservations? The resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 23-2, CD1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, with that, we are moving on to agenda item number 4. Okay, Resolution 23-14, which authorizes the transfer of $147,000 from the provisions for grants, partnerships, and security activity, current expenses to the DTS administration activity, current expenses for the fiscal year 2023 to cover the matching contribution required by the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration for FHWA candidate projects in federal fiscal years 2022 to 2025, which is the Transportation Improvement Program, from the Transportation Improvement Program. With us from the administration, from the Department of Transportation Services, we have Mr. Valdez, Tony Valdez.
Good morning, Chair. Morning, members. Tony Valdez from DTS. If it's okay, could I also address Resolution 2315, since they're sort of the same subject matter?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so the first
but we'll
one...
is that okay if we take up questions for the second one during the
sure.
second vote? Okay, thank you.
Okay. We do have staff here that could answer any technical questions. So basically, Resolution 2314 just provides matching contribution funds for projects on the Transportation Improvement Program. So it's pretty straightforward. And then Resolution 2315 provides operating expenses for a number of the city parking facilities. So it's really just straightforward movement of funds to allow DTS to undertake certain projects. If you have any questions, we have staff that can answer.
Okay, members, do we have any questions? Oh, members, hey? Okay.
In your amendment, I'm looking at the Kaka'ako Special District roadway improvement.
I'm sorry, I cannot
I'm
hear.
sorry, okay. I'm looking at the Kaka'ako Special District roadway improvement. We add a new project to upgrade roads within the Kaka'ako Special District, including Queen Street, Kawaihao Church, and Waimano Street. What is the arrangement with the state?
Sorry.
Hi, members. My name is Chris Clark. I'm the Chief Planner in the city's Department of Transportation Services. So just to, I guess, two parts to answer your question. The Resolution 2314 is specifically to provide the match for the Safe Streets for All project. So it's the walkways project. So improvements that were identified out of our pedestrian plan. So what we attached here, this Exhibit 1, was a list of all the amendments to the TIP that were included with the Resolution 22238 last year. And so that list includes not just this walkways program, but it also includes a variety of other things that are funded, items that are funded in the TIP. And so your question was regarding the Kaka'ako Special District roadway improvements. So it's not really regarding 2314, but happy to answer that question. So we did program funds for that, and it wouldn't be starting in this year, 23. It would be starting in FFY 24. And so the arrangement is that the city will do the preliminary engineering work, but the state is providing the match. So the 80% federal and then the 20% local will be provided by transfer funds from the state. And then they will also be funding the right-of-way acquisition if there's right-of-way acquisition necessary. So we're doing the work, but the state's paying for it.
Got it. My follow-up question, Mr. Clark, the reason why I bring this up is that I'm getting a letter drafted to the state representatives and state senators for the Kaka'ako district. And I'm just very disappointed that the state did not come up from their side to match the city in regards to that sinkhole at Halikuila and Cook. That's a $25 million hit. That is it DFM? Haku? Is that Director Millis? So I can see when the state transfers the improved properties to the city, that's fine. But somehow in this particular case, it was the infrastructure beneath the road that caused this sinkhole. And now the $25 million was never incorporated in our budget. So projects that we have in the budget for this past year will probably have to be deferred. Mr. Clark, can you give me any advice to see how we can get the elected officials at the state level to at least support the county in an emergency project that has affected a lot of tenants, meaning the businesses?
Chris, Mr. Clark, can I have you press the on-off button? Thank you.
Oh, great. How about now? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much. So DTS is the one that programmed these funds for the Kaka'ako Special District. And we have a really good relationship with the State Department of Transportation, HDOT, Ed Sniffen. And so there's a good partnership there. So when we envisioned this project and programmed the monies, that relationship was already in place. And so unfortunately, I can't answer any questions regarding the sinkhole. That's the department, DDC is handling that project, and I'm not familiar with the details.
It's just food for thought, Mr. Clark. Yeah. Once you transfer it to the city, we become liable for that area. And it is a development by the state of Hawaii. That state is a developer. So they should be at least assessed a certain amount to help pay for the stormwater culvert. And I hope it doesn't happen throughout the Kaka'ako district, because from one project at Halikuila, it can extend to other areas of Kaka'ako, whereby I truly believe we don't have the resources as far as taking over everything that happens. So just keep up the good work in the match with the state. I think Director Sniffen will be very, very much in support. And for these other infrastructures, I don't know what to do. But I just feel bad that this county will be spending $25 million outside of what the budget was. Thank you.
Members, any other questions for DTS? Okay, all right. Thank you. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. Seeing there are none, is there anyone online that wishes to testify? Seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. No, okay. Seeing none, there are no registered speakers and that there's no one else who wishes to testify. Members, we are in discussion. Okay, we have members say.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm sorry I'm on the roll. It's just that for Mr. Clark, electrification of transportation infrastructure. 2 years ago, when I just got elected, I did ask HART if they could put solar panels on our stations in anticipation of the transfer to DTS. It's just going to be more and more added costs to the city in regards to the cost of electricity in running the rail system. why can't we not maybe change the roofing or the architectural rendering and get, the solar panels for 65, less than 35%, right? It's a 65 tax credit, federal and state. And we start planning the future in regards to the O&M side. Maybe Heart is not involved in the O&M because it will be transferred to DTS. I just don't want this council to get stuck in coming up with the finances for the electrification of the rail system, which is the operations, whereby you could generate some energy to offset the cost. That's all I'm saying. If, can it be done at this point in time? Is it too late? When I see these curves, roofs, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, aesthetically. But for practical purposes, I'm just trying to figure out ways I can cut the costs for the future council members and administration in regards to electricity. Thank you.
Certainly appreciate your comment in regards to that. And you're probably aware of it, the Department of Design and Construction has a contract where they're able to install, the contractor actually capitalizes the expenses and installs like the PV or the improvements. And then over the course of the life of that improvement, we pay them back in the savings regarding to electricity. And we're looking at like our Middle Street campus now. We have, a footprint there of roofs that could be, that's an asset that the city has that's not currently included with PV. And so all of our facilities, certainly we'd want to monetize, use that opportunity as much as possible to get back some value with solar. And so, the good news is that the opportunity isn't lost. If it wasn't put in now, we can do that in the future.
Okay, well, I really hope so, because, I don't want to see us go into a change order midway through what the construction may occur. And I'm just trying to figure out ways to balance the budget also in the out years. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Say. Okay. Mr. Clark, I have a question, and let's say in Exhibit 1, one of the projects, and I know that us members on the former Transportation, Sustainability, and Health Committee that served on it, myself, as well as Councilmember Tolba, and, who else? Oh yeah, on Oahu MPO, on Oahu MPO, on Oahu MPO vice chair as part of the CAC before. We've seen these projects brought before us, but now that we see that we are including like the bridge program for Waialua, this is for example, Waialua Beach Road, right? This adds a new project for demolition and replacement of the existing 4-span concrete bridge on Waialua Beach Road crossing Ki'iki Stream. So how can like the council member of the district, I just realized it's you, follow up with stuff like that, with like specific projects like that? What's the next step? Because I know that we are putting up funding as well, but then there's also federal and state funding that we need to follow up with. So who then would the council member of the district follow up? Which department would the council member of the district follow up with?
Sure, happy to answer that question. So, and just to give you a little bit of background about the Transportation Improvement Program, so it's a 4-year program, plus it has 2 illustrative years. So when we include this amendment, we might not be amending something that's in this year. Sometimes we're thinking ahead to make sure that we can, because often with these kind of capital projects, you would do preliminary engineering, final design, any kind of right-of-way acquisition, construction. And so it might take between 4 and 6 years to actually get to construction with a project like this. And so the reason why we included it here is we were thinking ahead to make sure that the steps were in place to receive federal funds for that project. And so specifically, like with the Waialua Beach Road Bridge reconstruction, the Department of Design and Construction is project managing that effort. And so they would, I'm sure you get a quarterly CIP status report. And so if there's local match provided in the CIP, there would be a status report provided there where you can know what's happening in the progress. But just because we put it in the tip doesn't mean it's going to construction tomorrow. Sometimes it takes time to be able to get to that point.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Just wanted that out there. And I'm sure the council member of the district there will still be here to follow up on that. Just kidding. Oh, not kidding, but yes, for sure. Okay. Okay, thank you. Members, are there any other questions? Okay. All right. With that, the chair recommends that Resolution 23-14 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. With that, we're moving on to agenda item number 5, new agenda item number 5, which is Resolution 23-15, which authorizes the transfer of $300,000 from the Department of Transportation Services Administration activity, current expense, to the DTS Transportation Engineering activity, current expense, for fiscal year 2023 to cover the operating expenses for various city parking facilities, including electricity, materials and supplies, contract services, and to conduct an assessment of each facility. And from the administration, we have Tony Valdez from DTS.
Again, we just request your approval. This is for operating expenses for the parking facilities. We do have staff if you have any specific questions regarding the resolution or program.
All right, members, any questions for DTS? Okay, so we have members say.
Yeah, just this one question. What happened when the parking meters all went out? How's that? Mr. Clark, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your service to the city and county of Honolulu, and just keep it up. I think you folks are sometimes just the unsung heroes going through the process. But the question was, what happened to our parking meters?
How about now? Okay. Thank you very much, Member Say, for that compliment. We appreciate the support. With regard to our on-street parking meters, those that are able to accept credit cards, so about half, we have about 4,000 meters and about half of them we're accepting credit cards.
Yes.
And so we already had funded, we appreciate the council's support, an upgrade to our parking meters. So the money is there in our operating budget, and we're currently in procurement to upgrade not only those, but the other balance of the meters that only accept coins. So we have an active procurement now. Bids are due on February the 24th. And we're responding for requests for information from potential offers for that. And so what happened was the parking meter that accepts a credit card basically acts like a little modem inside. It's a little cell phone. And so it was connected to the Verizon 2G network, which they discontinued. And so that's a primary component of our upgrade to our parking meters, would be to make sure that they're connected to the 4G network and that they serve us hopefully for 5 to 10 more years as we upgrade them.
Okay.
And so that project is ongoing. What we have done in the interim and what we did plan to do anyway was just expand the technology options that were available to our customers. So not only could they pay with coin and credit card, but we wanted to make sure that there was a parking app, a mobile app that would allow them to pay. So for all of the 2,000 on-street smart meters that are out there today, customers can pay with the parking app, and we'll continue to have that as an option moving forward. And what that enables you to do is to be able to see where spaces are available ahead of time, to look ahead, and then also to be able to add value through your credit card through the app without having to go back to the meter. So it provides a great benefit to the customer. So we're working on that. We appreciate the council support in funding those upgrades, and we'll continue to move forward.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Clark, I think Councilmember Say is a great promoter of different services. Like I saw videos of him on the bus one time, and so if you need to have a good council member to promote the app too, he's very, very good. Okay.
Madam Chair, I will only do it if Councilmember Tolba is with me.
Okay, let's go. Okay, all right, awesome.
I'm
Yes.
hurt. I'm hurt.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, members. Are there any questions for DTS? Are we any discussion? Okay, all right. Seeing none, members, we are now in. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. Sorry, testifiers. Okay, there are no registered testifiers. Is there anyone who wishes to testify remotely?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, we are now calling up any in-person registered testifiers, which there are none, but is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Oh. Okay, with that, the chair recommends that Resolution 23-15 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections, any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, we are on our last item of the agenda, which is an informational briefing. So on January 23, 2022, the state legislature held a joint hearing of the committees on Ways and Means and Finance, so the Senate Ways and Means and House Finance, which, they never do a joint meeting with the Council's Committee on Budget, but okay. On the city administration's presentation, so this will be an update to the city administration's presentation to that specific committee, which was held on January 23. With that, we have from the administration, our Managing Director, Michael Formby.
Good morning, Budget Chair Cordero, Vice Chair Wire, and committee members. Mike Formby, Managing Director. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you the presentation that Mayor made to the joint committees. I think you may know that every year they give us a deadline for submission of the administration's bills, proposed bills, and we did provide you with a copy of the letter that goes to the joint committee, as well as a 2-page attachment of the bills. And in the e-version of this, you can also link directly to the bills themselves. So I'm happy to talk about any of the particular bills, but we do try to coordinate bills with HCOM, with the other mayors, to make sure that we're not conflicting and that we have a consistent package. And many of these bills have been presented annually and do not make it through the legislature, but we continue to try. So I'll highlight a couple of those bills for you. The first one relating to criminal justice data sharing. This is a request that came from the prosecutor's office and the Honolulu Police Department, supported by the judiciary. And basically it was to bring together the state and the counties to share justice data. So whether it's an inmate that's currently at HPD or somebody that's incarcerated, the data is not shared between the county, the state, and the various parties. So we put this initiative in to see if we could get support from the state to start sharing data. Relating to professional engineers, Senate Bill 212, this is a request from the Department of Planning and Permitting, which would allow for us to get our engineers licensed earlier through the work that they do under other licensed engineers in the departments. So right now it's very difficult for our engineers in DPP and other departments like DDC to get the licensure that we believe they're entitled to. And so basically we put forward a provision that if they're in satisfactory standing and they completed the engineering curriculum of 4 years, and they have 4 years of full-time professional level government employment, and they're performing lawful experience in review of engineered plans and calculations under the direct supervision of a licensed engineer, that they can achieve licensure. So we're hoping that bill will move. Relating to public transit, this is a bill that came out of DTS, and basically it's to make sure that when the rail operation starts running, which is a
unmanned operation, there's no driver, that we will continue to hold people responsible for conduct that is disruptive to transit service. And it also includes paratransit, the bus, and any other transit service that's under DTS. There were a couple of bills that related to license plates, and those bills were just administrative in nature to make sure that we honored the Hawaiian language with diacriticals and proper spellings. A bill that we put forward on an annual basis that Chair Waters sent us a text about a state bill that's out there that we supported on Monday is the power of non-judicial foreclosure. The county has asked for this for years from the state legislature, that when we have liens against properties, and those properties have abandoned and vacant homes that are a nuisance to the community, that we're able, without going through the lengthy process of condemnation, that we can foreclose on those properties through judicial foreclosure, which is a power of sale. And the state has never given that to us in the past, but this year they have a bill that allows the Department of Taxation to do that, and it sets up an expedited process in DPP for the state to issue the permit for demolition of those properties. So we supported that bill, but at the same time, we told the legislature that we've been asking for reciprocity in the same issue in the past, and we would like them to consider that as well. We still believe we need it at the county level. On the second page, relating to county zoning, this is a technical bill that has to do with short-term vacation rentals. And this bill has actually now been substituted with another bill at the legislature that we think achieves the purpose better. But it basically just cleans up any issues that might be associated with our short-term vacation rental bill. And the last one that I'll talk about, well, there's two actually. One that I think Chair Waters received a briefing from prosecutor's office on is relating to noise control. And this was put forth by the prosecutor's office after the veto of this council's bill on noise control standards in specifically Waikiki. And this allows the prosecutor office to enforce infractions that are not traffic infractions, which they need under state law. So when this passes, then we can put forth a ordinance that allows the prosecutors to go to court and enforce these types of non-traffic infractions. And then the last one is relating to firearms, and this came out of HPD, and it has to do with negligent concealment of a firearm. And as you know, we're currently working with the council on a sensitive places bill that has to do with concealed carry. This law would basically say if you're negligent and you brandish a firearm, or you don't completely conceal it in public, or you leave it in a public place, then you can either suffer a misdemeanor or a felony. And it's to make sure that people that have the permit to carry guns in public always keep it in a concealed manner. So the purpose of the briefing is primarily to share the bills that we have with the committees and answer any questions. And then the mayors also use it as an opportunity to update the committees on current issues that we know they've expressed interest in. So the mayor did update them on our affordable housing program, and he talked about the joint initiative between the mayor and the governor for better alignment between the two programs, an initiative that we're very supportive of. We've worked very well with Nani Medeiros and Chief of Staff Brooke Wilson, as well as James Koshiba. We meet with them regularly to go over the program and talk about the emergency proclamations that have come out of the governor's office and what our mayor's directives might look like. We talked about the private activity bond program that was stood up by the city and county in 2021. Awards were made at the end of 2022. And the state has a particular interest in that because they believe that how the city operates that program impacts the ability of HHFDC to perform its work. So we're currently in negotiations with them on what that relationship and what that agreement will look like. The mayor also talked about our push for self-regulation in the Department of Planning and Permitting. And we're hopeful that we're going to be able to implement some self-certification programs under the emergency proclamation. But basically that allows certain projects that are put forth to DPP to be certified by architects and engineers and to bypass some of the permitting processes that are currently rather lengthy.
And then last, we talked about Bill 7 and Bill 1, specifically because we did make a request of the governor's office to financially support the Bill 1 program, and we are still having positive discussions with the governor's office in line with their support. So it looks positive right now that the state is going to do their best to send us an appropriation that will actually double the financial incentives after a project, privately financed, privately constructed, receives a certificate of occupancy. Then they'll get a grant that will help them with the financing and the interest. We talked about public safety. We talked about weed and seed and safe and sound in Waikiki and what we're doing with HPD and the prosecutor's office to step up law enforcement. We talked about our support for first responders and our prioritization of filling their vacancies and what work we're doing there. The mayor then shifted to homelessness, and he talked about crisis outreach, response, and engagement. And I think you all know that we have had considerable interest from legislators to expand the scope of that program, which we think right now would actually push the limits of the growth of that program. We do have money you'll see in the upcoming budget to continue to grow the core program, but we want to stay responsive to the needs of downtown Honolulu, to Waikiki, and to Chinatown. So we are branching out into other communities, but at the same time, we don't want to overcommit. We did talk about hiring and retention, which has been a priority for the administration, filling our city vacancies, and the top-down assessment that we had conducted of our program, and we know there's much room for improvement, and we're implementing policy changes at this time that are intended to shorten the time frame from application to actual hiring. Then the mayor shifted to transit and transportation, and he talked about our support of the rail project and intermodal operations, which we are forecasting to commence mid-year, hopefully between April and June of 2023, and our support for that program. The mayor talked about the upcoming amendment to the full funding grant agreement that is in negotiation right now with the FTA, and that we plan to conclude that as quickly as possible so that we can free up the $744 million that the FTA has committed to make available to the city and county of Honolulu. And those are federal funds that have been held in abeyance since 2017. They're instrumental to the program. It cash straps us if we don't have that money. So it's very important that we get the full funding grant agreement amended. And then the mayor talked about the administration's commitment to a phase 2. In other words, just because the full funding grant agreement is being amended from East Kapolei to Civic Center, this administration supports the further lengthening and growth of the rail. And so specifically, the mayor talked about it's important that it connect to UH Manoa, and it's important that it connect to Kapolei Town Center. There's huge communities that need to be served by rail, and we believe once the interim operations start running mid-year, the community will understand and support the growth of this project. Mayor talked about parks and recreation and how important our parks are to the quality of our keiki families and our community members. And he talked about our focus on equitable and fair distribution of our park resources. And then lastly, the mayor just touched upon 2 items that are very important to the state and the county. First, Red Hill and our continued work with the Board of Water Supply and the Navy on a solution that is acceptable to the community but protects our aquifer. And lastly, landfill siting, which we all know has been challenged now by the impact of Red Hill contamination on our aquifer. It has complicated our ability to resite the landfill. So we're currently working, and the plan is to actually go forward to the military and see if they'll make military lands available, lands that are not over the aquifer, make them available to the city and county of Honolulu. So in short, that was the briefing that the mayor gave the legislators, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting the topics that was discussed between the joint committees of Ways and Means and Finance. There were a lot of things that were brought up, but before I move on to further questions, did you happen to hear the discussion for the ARPA SL FRF fundings regarding project number 1 and the council's priority for project number 1 to be expended and utilized?
I do not recall hearing that, but I'm going to tell you honestly, where I was seated in the auditorium,
which was right in the middle. It was very difficult with their sound system to understand many of the questions and the testimony. So are you talking about?
I'm talking about our committee hearing just today we talked at length about project number 1, which is not included into that resolution, but about utilizing it, and a lot of the discussion points, whether it be from prioritizing from safe and sound, weed and seed, expanding core. We also talked about the need for capacity and services, beds, as well as I keep talking about the gap in time from when someone is serviced and then what happens after, the follow through, the guidance thereafter, and also what the nonprofits or the assistance and capacity that's needed for nonprofits, which is what this project number 1 focuses on. And I think that was really harped on in the discussion. And so I just wanted to highlight that before I guess we go into the different topics. It's more of a rhetorical question, but just really wanted to highlight that along with the priorities and I guess asks or presentation to the state, that there is that funding and prioritization that the council has been presenting and asking for, and that's presented in the appendix.
Sure. In Budget Chair, I did watch the testimony and I did hear the questions and comments of council, and that point was made strongly and well, and it was received by the administration. So we look forward to working with you on how we can allocate more funds to not only nonprofits, but wraparound services and services that are needed by the homeless and the vulnerable communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, are there any questions? Oh, I would also like to welcome Chair Waters to the committee. Okay, members, any questions regarding the topics and discussions that were had, that were brought up, I mean? No, there was a lot. Okay, so my questions are relating to these bills. They all seem to have, I guess, both House and Senate bills. So does that mean you worked on it? It was presented to both the House and Senate, and they introduced like a package for the City and County of Honolulu? Is that how it goes?
So we send it in both forms, and then between the Senate and the House, they decide which measure to move on. That's typically their decision, but we do give them the option by submitting both. Okay, and then moving forward, are we going to make specific asks and requests to further assist the city, the counties, I guess, regarding any further funding, especially with any new projects that will come out of the partnerships with the new governor? Mm-hmm. So the way we work that is we work directly with the governor's office and we work with the department heads. And then from time to time we work with legislators, but primarily we work with our contemporaries on the state side. For example, the Bill 1, Bill 7 program. For the Bill 1, we're working through the governor's office for that appropriation. And so that's how we choose to work with the state, is we work through the governor's office and they'll put forward monetary requests based upon the program. We do similarly with the Department of Transportation when it comes to federal funds that can be allocated by DOT to the county, and that's through the AMPO process. Mm-hmm. And so currently, Director-designate Sniffen has been really good to the county and has worked with us on allocating more funds for county programs, funds that we would otherwise have to use city funds. So that's how we approach those funding requests. Okay, understood. Also, throughout the years, and especially when we're going through the budget cycle, there are oftentimes comments that we make like, hey, we need to go to the state legislature and get this figured out. Does the city administration take note of certain things that we have in discussions, like, oh, we need to note this to discuss with the state legislature to either allow the counties to work a little easier or just ease our work a little bit better? And if not, are you able to, when we start to say, hey, oh, this is
this is how we're restrained a little bit. We need to go to the state legislature, and I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Budget Chair. We do. It is a two-way street. So the state reaches out to us, the departments reach out to us, legislators. Scott Psyche, Speaker Psyche, I've known him for a long time. He'll call and text and ask if we can assist, and we ask and request as well of the city. So I'll give you just some examples of areas that we've worked with the state on a number of initiatives that are ongoing. The Chun Brother Roads in Kaka'ako, that's an ongoing issue that had to do with the transfer of those roads to the city and county of Honolulu and what responsibility we have. And when they transferred those roads to us, then we made a corresponding request for funding because we felt that otherwise that put a burden that had been on the state. They were state roads prior to the Chun brothers exercising their rights on the streets, which ended up not being validated by the court. When they transferred those to the city and county, that falls on the taxpayers through our real property tax system. So we asked for funding. So we do have this back and forth on a number of issues. Right now it's on affordable housing and homelessness, where we're working with the governor's office and various directors on the village concept and where those villages could be located. So yes, we do that on a weekly basis, if not daily basis during session, back and forth with our counterparts.
Okay, thank you. Are we on the defense with any current bills that are in play at the state legislature? Meaning there's a lot of bills that are, there are many bills that are relating to counties, whether it states that in the description or not, sometimes explicitly to the city and county of Honolulu. Are we on the is the city administration on the lookout for certain bills that may hinder our ability to keep working within our budget constraints?
Yes, Budget Chair, we are. We have a full-time employee. I believe all of you know Kevin Wong.
Oh.
He's our legislative liaison. He is experienced at this, and we have a legislative tracker, which assigns all of the bills by subject matters to the departments. So DPP is given a heads up on all the bills, and you all know there's hundreds and hundreds of bills that are filed. Many of them don't move, but the ones that move, we need to have the departments reviewing them and either calling legislators or actually filing testimony. We sometimes call the chair of the committee and ask them to defer a bill. We don't necessarily do it in writing for reasons that may be sensitive. So we will call them and we'll ask them if they would work with us on deferring a bill because we have concerns with it, and we do provide testimony. And it is a lot of work for the departments during legislative session. But if the council, I believe the council also testifies on bills.
Yes.
But if like Chair Waters did this last weekend, I just say to the council members that if any of you ever want to coordinate with the administration so that we go in together in either support or opposition of a bill, you should not hesitate to text me. Can be even on a weekend like Chair Waters did when a bill needs testimony filed by 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. We really appreciate that, Chair Waters. Appreciate that reach out. You're always welcome to text us or email us, ask us to look at a bill, tell us your position, or ask our position, and we'll see if we can get together to support or oppose something that we know is going to have a financial impact on the city and county of Honolulu.
Thank you. And I think one bill that I know that I'm definitely following is, as you know, the project for Safe Routes to School by Fern Elementary was just completed. And I know that there's efforts for safe streets for people in the Senate. And I was very happy to see that HPD actually testified in support of it. So I was like, you're right. Maybe I should have coordinated because we worked a lot with HBD with Safe Routes to School prior. So that is a good point. That is a good point. Was kind of acting alone in my testimony there, but that's a good point. Okay, sorry. I just realized I didn't allow for questions. Yes, Member Kia Aina, and then Member Vice Chair Wire. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just two issues. First, relating to, first of all, thank you for your testimony. and the presentation. As you know, the 201H process is so critically important for both the state and the county. And we just passed 3 major projects recently, and one of the challenges we faced historically is the time frame for council consideration. So fortunately, we have a colleague of ours who is in the Senate, Senator Elefante, who's introduced SB 491 relating to affordable housing. It would extend the days from 45 to 60 days for city council consideration. We, of course, passed a resolution, I believe, in the last year or two, strongly support. I asked for the administration support of this just to give us a little more leeway. During the consideration of the recent project, it was clear to me that there was, because of the time frame to make amendments is very, very difficult, including DPP's proposed amendments, which came very late on the Waipahu project, and we didn't make it. So I just think that this would be helpful.
Appreciate that.
Second, I wanted to make a comment about Haiku Stairs, since Senator Chris Lee evidently raised it to the mayor there. I have been in contact with Senator Schatz myself. I'm going to be meeting with him as a follow-up when we go to DC for the NACO conference, and I've been talking to some of his associates who are doing their due diligence, but I just wanted to make clear to the administration that I'm adamantly opposed to any increase in the federal footprint in the state of Hawaii, including this area. And that includes both DOD and non-DOD lands, including the National Park Service. So again, I'm going to talk to him to say that he can look into it, but they have enough lands that were wrongfully taken by, of course, the kingdom, and then the Republic of Hawaii ceded it to the United States. And it's a lot of land, and we need land. We need land for housing. We need land for the county and the state of Hawaii to malama. I don't need the federal government to be involved anymore on any more lands in Hawaii. Anyway, I just want to make that clear. Your cabinet have been very responsive in coordinating our overall process for Haiku Stairs, both Department of Parks and Rec as well as the director for the Department of Design and Construction. Greatly appreciated. It's one of those thorny issues that is going to continue to always garner media attention, but I think we just have to make sure that we are all on the same page. But and the reason I have to make a statement about the federal footprint is because it will have an impact in any longer-term strategy that anyone else may have. So thank you.
Vice Chair Kia, and I appreciate that. I can tell you that the mayor and I have understood your position, and we've made that clear in our discussions with the groups that are currently looking at continuing discussions. We understand that, and we appreciate your position. So thank you for clarifying today.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Managing Director, for being here.
Good to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate all your work. You folks are busy tracking our stuff and then going across the street. I looked at Mayor's Message 24 and then the package report on the Capitol website, and I'm not seeing the two items. I just wanted to see if I could clarify. So the TVU legislation, do you have the bill number for those? And I know you said actually it might not be mayor's bills, it might be alternately introduced legislation. Because I know there's a few different pieces of legislation relating to vacation rentals that were introduced.
Vice Chair, let me see if I have that number here. So the bill on our list was
I'm sorry, I know you have a long list.
I have so many papers in front of me, but let me refer to the right paper.
Yeah, because ours was shorter, so that's why I was like, oh, I don't think I'm missing it, but I don't see it on ours. So
So on our paper, the bill was Senate Bill 219, House Bill 109. And my understanding, and I'll have this confirmed with Kevin after this meeting, is that I believe we're now looking at House Bill 84. And I'll
Okay.
confirm that for you.
Okay. And then the landfill siding bill, do you have that number also? Because I don't see that in the package on the website.
The landfill siting bill,
Yeah, you mentioned something about landfill siding earlier.
we didn't put in a measure right now on landfill siting. We want to, actually, there has been discussion about asking the legislature to amend Act 72. I believe that's right, 72 or 73, but I believe it's 72, that restricts our ability to site a landfill within a certain distance of residential communities. When we get to that bridge, if we need to go to the legislature and ask them to do that, after our discussions with the military and other groups, then we'll do that. But we didn't want to prematurely ask for that. So there's no current bill from the county related to landfills.
Okay, appreciate that. I must have misheard. Thank you, MD. And thank you, Chair.
Chair Waters.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair.
Thanks for being here as well. You know, I did watch the video of Mayor Blangiardi's presentation to both the Finance Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. And it was tough, right? He has to field all those questions. But one of the things that stuck out was when the chair of the Ways and Means Committee asked if there were any appropriation bills, and the mayor said no. My point is real simple. If you don't ask, you don't get. And we do have the former Speaker of the House, Calvin Say, here. And, you know, I'm happy to hear that you are asking them for help, especially with the $20 million for that sinkhole in Kaka'ako. Because like you said, that was a state road that they turned over to us. And we have to take the $20 million out of our DTS budget, right? When really they should be helping us. But I guess what you're saying is, while it's not in a bill, that you're still asking and talking to them to try to include some help in whether it be the House or the Senate to include it in their budget. Is that correct?
Chair Waters, that is correct. And so we did not put forward a formal appropriation bill, but we do have discussions with the state all the time. And it's not only at the governor's office level, but at the departmental level about funding and about the ability of the city and county to actually implement certain funding. And I'll give you an example, would be EMS. We still have a share this year. And I think you all know that when that bill went down, our initial position was to oppose it because we felt that it would strap the city and county residents under real property tax for the operation of that system. And what they did do was commit to work with us on giving us the flexibility to amend the fee structure. And that's what we're currently working through now. And that's the conversation that we need to have with council about exactly how we do that and what is reasonable to put on the people of the city and county of Honolulu based on whether they're covered under a plan or uncovered. And a lot of it has to do with the number of call-outs that happen on a daily basis in which there is what's called non-transport. So they go to a scene of an accident, they triage the people at the scene, they might assess them, blood pressure, they might actually do minor treatment at the scene, but then when they say, we recommend you go to the hospital, they deny going to the hospital. Right now, the state has never charged for service rendered on the scene, triage rendered on the scene. And most of the calls that they get out, they actually don't transport. And so we're actually looking at that now, the ability to assess for services rendered. Not only do we respond with EMS personnel, so it's time and labor, it's on our assets, the cost of ambulance, operations and maintenance. We respond on the scene, we provide services through triage, and then people decide, probably a combination of their own health assessment and knowing that there will be a financial impact if they go to the hospital, they decide not to go to the hospital, and they get free services. There's no fee for that. So We worked with the Department of Health on that and with the governor's office to make sure that we had the latitude as a county to revisit that. So it's direct ask, like in the governor's office, for them to support us on appropriations. It's indirect ask for policies that allows the county to recoup the money that we need. So it's a conversation that we have, but you're correct, there was no proposed appropriation bill. You're correct.
Thank you. I mean, you brought up the ambulance, and I'm actually quite worried about that. Act 208 from 2021 transfer the ambulance to the county over a 3-year period, right? And that typically costs $50 million, but they only collected $30 million. In FY22, we got $46 million from the state. In FY23, we're only getting $8.9 million from the state. So I'm curious, how are we going to make up that difference? Are we able to make up that difference?
We are, and we're currently having that discussion with Director Ireland and Deputy Santee. The initial calculations, not only on just the city and county side, but on the Department of Health side, was that if we implement reasonable triage fees for services rendered, responding services rendered on the scene, we'll actually be able to bring in significant revenue that will make it a sustainable operation. The conversation that we need to have with council is the process for doing that. And so we're open to meeting with budget chair or chair, vice chair to have that conversation about what would you like council's role to be? Because we believe the administration can do that under its fee setting structure, but we also know that council has the power to set fees. So we want to have that conversation with you.
Okay, I was just curious whether or not we need permission from the legislature in order to raise the fees, or we can do that on our own.
I believe the language already exists. I'll confirm, but I was told that it already exists, and I've read it in the past, so I'm pretty sure the language already authorizes the county to do that.
Okay, as I mentioned, I think we're only getting $8.9 million this year from the state, which used to be $50 million. So if we haven't raised the fees yet, we're still going to have that shortfall, if you will, that we have to make up. And I guess the question is, and you don't have to answer this today, is where we're going to come up with that money, right? That's what the budget committee is going to have to figure out. You know, the other thing I've had on my desk, the stormwater utility fee bill, which would charge homeowners a utility fee if they don't capture water on their property, and instead it goes into the stormwater system. And of course, our stormwater system is outdated and needs to be fixed. Just a suggestion, perhaps, because the legislature has a lot more money than we do, that rather than asking the homeowners to pay for the stormwater utility, let's ask the legislature to help us do this. You know, I guess we can ask next year, but perhaps something like that would, I think, be really helpful.
Chair Waters, I'll just share what I know, and I really would defer to the Department of Facility Maintenance and the experts in that department who have been working on this utility fee structure for some time, which was a two-part process. The first part was to establish the utility, and the second part was to set the fees, and it does concern impervious surfaces. So the way the program was designed is it included the state and the federal government. And what we know is the state is already trying to exempt themselves from the stormwater utility fee, which we're opposing that effort by them to do that. And we're having offline discussions with them about that. We don't believe that's fair. We know that there are areas that are significant accumulators of water which goes into our drainage system, and everybody needs to be accountable for that. So we're currently working with them. The department is working with them on what reasonable exceptions might be, if any, but there's been no agreement yet. But that is an ongoing conversation, and I understand your concern.
Thank you. You know, I'm also looking at Department Communication 57, which basically was from Director Kawano dealing with our revenues and our revenue collections. And I'm just looking at the TAT that we got from, our portion of the TAT. We anticipated 85 million coming in, but we've only collected 37 million so far. This is the halfway point. Are you concerned about that at all?
Chair, I would need to talk to Director Kawano. The last input that I got from him was that they were very confident that we were going to actually come in between the 85 and 90 million on collection. So I will touch base with him. I haven't heard concern from him yet that he doesn't expect to achieve those collections, but I appreciate that input, and I'll touch base with him on that.
Sure, and perhaps we could talk offline a little bit more about this, but just going through what we budgeted and what we actually collected on environmental services, refuse, we budgeted 122 million, but we've only, at the six month time, we've only collected 41 million. So, I mean, is this something we should be worried about going forward with the budget coming up?
So, Chair, if our revenue collection is not tracking our forecasts, I think we're always concerned. Whether or not there are reasons for that that can be explained by the department based upon historical collections, that's what I need to know. So I'll take that information back to the department as well.
Okay. And then ultimately, the whole point, though, of this, my questions, and I think what the chair, why she put this on the agenda is just, again, if we don't ask the legislature for help, they're not going to give it to us. So we shouldn't be ashamed to ask them to help, especially when it comes to, these core services. I think that'd be super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? And I would like to welcome to the Committee on Budget, Councilmember Okimoto. Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. Real quickly, just coming back to the stormwater utility, are the feds willing to pay, or have they asked to be, are they seeking to be exempted too?
I don't think we've had a clear indication yet from the feds, so I think it's still an open discussion.
Okay, because they have a lot of land too.
They do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And my question is regarding, okay, so you mentioned there are a few bills, one or two came from the prosecuting attorneys. One was and I guess a discussion between Chair Waters, and then some were from DPP, I believe. So given that the state legislature gives the counties a deadline, do you give the departments a deadline for possible bills to put into the package as well?
Yes, we do. And we do that working with the other counties. So it's not just a City and County of Oahu deadline, it's an HCOM package because we all review each other's bills so that we don't conflict. But we do that, and then we also make sure that to the best of our ability that they file testimony on time, which gets to be really tough when hearings are scheduled with short notice for them to get testimony in, but we do that.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that is, okay, so since you're working with HCOM, which I know what it is, but are you able to please share what HCOM, the acronym, stands for?
My understanding, it's the Hawaii Council of Mayors. Okay. So it's the group of mayors, all the mayors.
Thank you. So for the HCOM package and for the I guess working with the departments, and of course I talked about how when we have discussions here at the council with the city administration, and we're like, oh, this is how we feel constrained. We need to go to the state legislature. Can we agree on a good deadline for us for even members to text you, to go to the directors at the different departments, our city departments, to be like, hey, this would be a good idea to go to the state legislature with for assistance policy-wise. What is a good deadline for us?
A good deadline? Mm-hmm. For a specific bill?
Yeah.
I think as soon as you know of a concern on a specific bill, the sooner the better, because the timelines are so short. So our directors are also open to any input from council members on policy at the state level.
Okay. Okay, thank you, members. Members, do we have any other questions regarding this informational briefing? Okay, with that Thank you, Managing Director Formby, for this information. And with that,
Thank you, Chair.
there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, I'm just kidding. Oh, I have to hold on. Okay, Managing Director is fine, but we're not done because I got to ask for testifiers. Okay, I apologize. We will now proceed with remote testifiers. And we have one. We have Gigi Zhang.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the Budget Committee. Angela testifying on behalf of Kapalama NSW, a citizens-led grassroots of the HPD. Any way we can support our state and city in their collaborative efforts is vital to the operations of Hawaii. I'm going to simplify what I have to say because it presents integrated from various sectors, and it has to do with one of the priorities from the list. So at the Capitol, there was a collaboration of the public safety, corrections, and judiciary committees to discuss solutions for the justice system because it affects everyone. Criminals, homelessness, public safety, they're interconnected subject matters. And with research, it's been found that it's not just 3 players in the game, but it doesn't just involve judiciary, police, and courts. It involves mental health, behavioral health, medical sector, and the social service providers. There was a lot of talk about programs like HOPE and CORE. HOPE addresses people after they've offended. CORE addresses homelessness before they offend. The previous mayor's administrations addressed homelessness with compassionate disruptions, and it didn't work. CORE is modeled after STAR, implemented from Denver, and they were both pilot programs to address the fruits of homelessness, violent crimes.
Angela, may I ask you to please conclude your testimony?
Yes, I will wrap up. I will conclude. So, the office that implemented STAR was created to connect the key players to help strategize solutions, to remove barriers to access, integrate their strategies, and also strengthen the network of mental health resources while reducing the strain on critical city resources. So any way we can support those efforts, we will support them any way that we can. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, are there any other are there any remote testifiers who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will now proceed with in-person testimony in the council chamber. Seeing none, is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Seeing none, members, we are in discussion. Okay, there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 11:04 a.m.